The hall was silent. Cameras from across the African continent were live, but the world didn't yet know what it was about to witness. It was 2025, the exact day Thomas Sankara had taken power 42 years earlier. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stepped onto the podium inside the newly built People's Assembly Hall in Ouagadougou. No suit, no tie, just his military fatigues, his red beret, and the conviction of a man who had outlived 3 assassination attempts in 6 months. He looked at the crowd, students, soldiers, elders, engineers, diplomats from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and Chad. He took a breath and spoke. Today, we stop dreaming. Today, we start building. A new city, a new Africa begins here. The crowd stirred. Not with Western money, not with foreign advisors, with our own hands, our own minds. We will build a city, a capital for our future, called Nkrumaaville. The applause began slowly, then erupted into thunder. The cameras caught it all, young men in tears, elders standing in disbelief, ministers fist-pumping like revolutionaries. Within minutes, hashtags trended across Africa. Number Nkrumaaville, number Traoré Vision, number Africa Rises. But not everyone was clapping. 3 hours later, in a high-rise office in Paris, French intelligence officials sat in silence, watching the broadcast. "He's serious," one said coldly. "This isn't rhetoric anymore." "Can it be stopped?" another asked. The room went quiet. Then the director spoke. "Everything can be stopped." Back in Burkina Faso, the plan was already in motion. Traoré's team revealed the first phase, a solar-powered city built on reclaimed land from a former French agricultural conglomerate. The land had been nationalized earlier that year under a quiet executive order. The city would host an African technology institute to rival MIT, hospitals with free universal care, a Pan-African media center to counter Western narratives. The Central Bank of Sahel, using a new gold-backed digital currency called the Kama, no IMF, no World Bank, no CFA franc. It was a direct challenge to the global order, and everyone knew it. Inside the US Embassy in Accra, a CIA field agent made an urgent call. "You need to watch Traoré's speech. This isn't another populist president. He's trying to finish what Gaddafi started." 3 days later, construction began. The Burkina Ministry of Infrastructure, now fully staffed by local engineers, began clearing the land. Young graduates from Mali and Guinea arrived on buses, singing unity songs. Even artists came to paint murals of Pan-African legends across the temporary housing units. And then came Kemi. Kemi was a 32-year-old software engineer from Nigeria, educated in China, radicalized in Kenya, and fully committed to the vision. She had turned down offers from Google and Huawei to join Traoré's project. "What they're afraid of," she said during a viral interview, "is not the city. It's the idea that Africans can build it without asking for permission." She was appointed chief technology architect of Nkrumaaville, and that's when the sabotage began. It started with small things: emails not arriving, blueprint files mysteriously corrupted, satellite data going dark. Then came the bigger hit. A coordinated cyber attack wiped out half the digital plans stored in the ministry's secure servers. A message appeared on the remaining screens: "Your future is a fantasy. Stop now." Kemi didn't flinch. She pulled together a team of ethical hackers from Senegal, South Africa, and Ethiopia. Within 48 hours, they restored the backups. But that wasn't the real victory. The real win came when Kemi discovered where the attack originated: a hidden server inside the French military base in Djibouti. She brought the report straight to Traoré. We have the IP logs, timestamps, and file traces. They're not just watching us, they're trying to end us. Traoré took the file in silence. Let them try. On June 21st, he delivered another broadcast. This time, direct, fierce, and defiant. To those watching us from afar, from behind dark screens and darker intentions, know this. You tried to stop Nkrumaaville. You failed. You tried to kill Sankara. His name lives. You stole our gold. But now we mine it for ourselves. Africa will never bow again. The video was shared over 120 million times in 48 hours. But as Traoré's vision caught fire across the continent, in the shadows of a coastal city in North Africa, a secret meeting took place. 5 men, 4 languages, 1 agenda. We'll try the soft sabotage again, one said. And if that fails, another asked. A long silence. Then we remove him. Like Gaddafi. The cranes never stopped. Even when the internet went out. Even when banks froze the project's international funds. Even when anonymous threats arrived at night. By the 3rd month, Nkrumaaville was more than a vision. It was visible. Concrete foundations were in place. Solar panels lined the hills. And at the center stood the rising steel frame of what would become the Pan-African Unity Tower. A structure meant to rival the Eiffel Tower, built not as a symbol of conquest, but of liberation. But beneath that rising skyline, a storm was building. Inside a luxury hotel in Dakar, a secret coalition had formed. They called themselves the Balance. It was an unofficial alliance. Former African ministers, intelligence handlers, private security contractors, and silent partners in European banking. Their mission? Kill the dream before it spreads. He's not just building a city, one whispered. He's building an ideology, and ideologies are harder to kill than men. In Burkina Faso, Traoré wasn't blind to it. He'd received 2 warnings from military allies in Guinea and Mali. Satellite intercepts of foreign drones mapping Nkrumaaville's layout. He doubled his internal guard. He rotated his inner circle. He changed vehicles daily, never sleeping in the same place twice. Still, something wasn't right. His most trusted general, Colonel Yakuba Diallo, had grown distant. Once a fiery revolutionary, Diallo now rarely spoke in meetings. His phone was often unreachable. And during a routine intelligence briefing, Traoré noticed something chilling. Diallo had received a transfer of $2.8 million from a Dubai-based company with links to French defense contractors. Traoré said nothing. Instead, he called Kemi. I need your team to follow Diallo. Quietly, digitally, physically. I want to know what shoes he wears, what time he breathes, and who whispers in his ear at night. Kemi's team tracked him to a private airfield at 2 a.m. Hidden cameras captured Diallo speaking to a man in civilian clothes, tall, pale, with a distinct Belgian accent. The man handed Diallo a briefcase. The audio was scrambled, but 3 words were clear: deliver or disappear. The next morning, Traoré gathered his cabinet, but left 1 chair empty, Diallo's. I know some of you feel afraid, he said. I know the world is circling us, like vultures. But I remind you, vultures only gather when something is dying. And we are alive. More alive than ever. The room stood, applauding. But outside, an invisible clock had started ticking. The assassination plot began on August 4th, Sankara Day. The plan was elegant in its brutality. At exactly 3:33 p.m., a drone strike would target the Unity Tower's construction site. During a ceremony Traoré was scheduled to attend. The strike would be blamed on a malfunctioning supply drone. The media would flood the airwaves with technical tragedy, and Diallo would assume command, calling for national unity. But Traoré had already rewritten the script. That morning, a mysterious convoy left Ouagadougou. It was unmarked. Inside one of the black SUVs was a man identical to Traoré. Same build, same walk, same voice. A carefully trained body double, used only in emergencies. The real Traoré was already underground, watching the ceremony remotely from a military outpost near the Ghana border. At 3:30 p.m., everything was calm. At 3:33, the drone fired. A fireball erupted across the site. Cameras cut. Screams filled the air. For 47 minutes, the world believed Ibrahim Traoré was dead. In Paris, champagne bottles popped. In Washington, news anchors prepared obituary specials. And in ECOWAS headquarters, a confidential alert was drafted. Prepare transition protocol. Burkina Faso regime destabilized. But at 4:20 p.m., all hell broke loose. Every screen in Burkina Faso lit up. From dusty village TVs to smartphones in urban cafes, a live feed appeared. Traoré alive, standing in uniform, calm, confident, fire burning behind him. Not from the attack, but from a roaring bonfire of betrayal. They tried, he said. They failed. Again, he paused. This was never just a city. This is a firewall against their future. And now we know who the traitors are. Simultaneously, Burkina Special Forces moved on 5 locations. Among them, the airfield, Diallo's estate, and the private communications hub inside a foreign embassy compound. Diallo was arrested, live, handcuffed by his former subordinates. As he was dragged into an armored vehicle, cameras caught him screaming, "You don't understand, you've already lost." But the people didn't believe him. They flooded the streets in celebration. Kemi returned to the control hub, exhausted but victorious. Her team had intercepted the drone's frequency, captured every transmission, and recorded Diallo's encrypted conversations. The evidence was overwhelming, and the revolution was now irreversible. In the following weeks, Mali and Guinea announced their intention to build sister cities modeled on Nkrumaaville. Thousands of African engineers abroad applied to join the project. A youth-led movement called the Builders spread across 18 countries, calling for African-made cities, economies, and governments. And Traoré, he gave no more speeches. He simply walked among the workers, helmet on, sleeves rolled up, building the city with his own hands. 2 months after the failed assassination attempt, Nkrumaaville was evolving from concrete and steel into a symbol of defiance. The Pan-African Unity Tower was now halfway built. The solar grid had begun to power nearby villages, and the Central Bank of Sahel, the heart of Traoré's economic independence plan, had quietly opened its underground vaults. Inside those vaults was something far more dangerous than weapons, a new gold-backed digital currency named Kama. Developed by a coalition of African economists, blockchain developers, and rogue tech minds from Zimbabwe to Zanzibar, Kama was designed to bypass the SWIFT system, eliminate the CFA franc, and challenge the monopoly of Western-controlled finance in Africa. One Kama coin was pegged to 0.5 grams of physical gold, stored in secure vaults under Nkrumaaville and guarded by soldiers who'd sworn a blood oath to the Sahel Alliance. And it worked. In just 3 weeks, Mali paid off $32 million in fuel imports to Guinea using Kama. Thousands of young traders in Nairobi began exchanging it on mobile platforms. An underground African e-commerce market exploded, run entirely on Kama. The West took notice. Inside the BIS headquarters in Switzerland, a quiet emergency meeting was called. The Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, had no official position, but they understood the threat. If this spreads, one said flatly, we lose control of African liquidity. Control of Africa, another replied, has always been about currency. In Burkina Faso, Kemi was promoted to head the Digital Defense Unit. Her job? Protect the Karma system from what everyone knew was coming next, a cyber war. And the first strike came fast. A mysterious virus, named Mirage, infected banking terminals across West Africa. It mimicked Karma's code, then altered transaction records. Thousands of users saw balances disappear. Others watched their savings convert into phantom crypto coins that led to dead addresses. Kemi's team traced Mirage to a server in Luxembourg, registered under a shell company once linked to NATO contractors. She immediately countered, launching an open-source AI-powered firewall system codenamed Ubuntu Lock. She pushed the code to every Karma terminal in Africa. Within 48 hours, the virus was neutralized, but the psychological damage was done. Panic spread. ECOWAS issued a security warning about unregulated digital currencies. The African Development Bank suspended all digital lending to Nkrumaaville, and France's finance minister made a televised statement. Burkina Faso's experiment is reckless. It endangers economic stability for the entire region. Traoré responded in a single tweet. Reckless is 60 years of colonial debt and 40 billion euros stolen annually, plus Kame's freedom. That tweet was seen over 300 million times in 2 days. From Soweto to Casablanca, young Africans began demanding Karma. Street artists painted murals of the coin with the words, "Mali paid in gold, why not us?" Even African celebrities joined the wave. A Nigerian Afrobeat star dropped a single called Karma Flow, and within days it had 40 million views. But fame only made the target bigger. The real attack came next. Using diplomatic pressure and silent deals, the World Bank and IMF engineered a coordinated economic strike. Overnight, multiple African central banks froze Karma reserves. Western credit rating agencies downgraded Burkina Faso's financial outlook to junk. A massive disinformation campaign began. AI-generated videos claiming Karma was a Ponzi scheme, that Nkrumaaville was bankrupt, and that Traoré had hidden billions offshore. The videos were fake, but believable. Even some in Traoré's cabinet began to question the project. One late night, Kemi sat in the control room with Traoré, both staring at the live dashboard of digital transactions. "They've cut off 60% of liquidity," she whispered. "If the others fall, we're isolated." Traoré didn't blink. "Then we fight like we're isolated, and we build like we've already won." He picked up the red phone on the wall, a direct line not to a general or ambassador, but to the gold mine. "Move the reserves," he ordered. "Every ounce we hold in currency vaults, move them into public sight. I want every African to see their wealth is real." Within 72 hours, videos flooded social media. Lines of armored trucks delivering real gold bars to transparent vaults across 5 cities. Journalists from Al Jazeera and even RT were invited to film it. It was a masterstroke. Confidence returned. People started buying Karma again. The price stabilized, and then something unexpected happened. Zimbabwe officially recognized Karma as legal tender. The moment was historic. A southern African country choosing a Sahelian currency over the US dollar or Chinese yuan. The ripple was immediate. Namibia issued a statement of open interest. A South African politician called for a regional referendum. Ghana silently began mining its own Karma-compatible blockchain. The financial war was no longer a secret. It was global. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré stood on the rooftop of Unity Tower with Kemi. The wind howled, dust dancing across the city below. A city still rising from the ground. Steel skeletons stretching toward a tomorrow they refused to surrender. "They wanted me dead," he said. "Then they wanted my dream dead. But now they want Africa's memory erased." He looked at her. "They won't stop, Kemi. The next strike won't be digital. It'll be on the ground." She nodded. "Then we code faster and shoot straighter." They both laughed, not because it was funny, but because they knew the storm that was coming. And they were ready. A red sunrise broke over Nkrumaaville. It had been 18 months since the first stone was laid. The Unity Tower neared completion. The Karma currency had spread to 12 African nations. A quiet revolution was reshaping the continent. But the enemy wasn't done. Satellite intel picked up a convoy of unmarked military trucks entering Burkina Faso through the north, moving fast, no flags, no broadcasts. They weren't rebels, they were mercenaries, highly trained, backed by unknown financiers, equipped with Western hardware and satellite support. Their objective was clear: seize the central bank vault, destroy the Unity Tower, kill or capture Traoré. The attack came at midnight. Explosions rocked the city's perimeter. Drone swarms blacked out communications. Then boots hit the ground. Over 300 elite operatives in desert camo, speaking in code, moving with brutal efficiency. But Nkrumaaville wasn't undefended. Waiting for them was the Red Line, Traoré's most loyal force. Veterans from Mali, Guinea, Niger, revolutionary fighters. They knew the terrain, and they fought with the fury of men defending something sacred. Bullets lit up the skyline. Civilians were evacuated underground. The vaults locked down. Traoré refused to flee. "This city wasn't built so I could run. If they want me, I'll be waiting." Kemi led the cyber unit, jamming enemy comms and feeding false GPS data. She turned their drones against them. Confused and cut off, the mercenaries split. That's when Diallo reappeared. Freed by unknown allies during transport weeks earlier, he was now embedded with the attackers, wearing a mercenary uniform, shouting orders in French and English, and he was headed straight for the Unity Tower. Traoré climbed to the top floor, alone. He knew Diallo was coming, and he wanted him to see it, the city still standing. As the elevator opened, Diallo stepped out, rifle raised. "It's over," he hissed. "You lost. The world doesn't want this city. It wants order." Traoré stepped forward slowly. "You mean control, and you're too small to understand that this isn't about me anymore. It's about them." He pointed toward the city skyline, still glowing, still fighting. Diallo fired, but the bullet never hit. Kemi had arrived. One shot, clean. Diallo fell. By dawn, the mercenaries were routed, hundreds captured. Some disappeared before they could talk. But the city stood, bruised, burning in places, but unbroken. Traoré stepped onto national broadcast. No speech, just 5 words: "We are still building Africa." Weeks later, at a global summit in Ethiopia, Traoré unveiled a plaque: Nkrumaaville, the first free city. Not a city of walls or palaces, but of open code, open trade, and open hands. Nkrumaaville was no longer just in Burkina Faso. It was now in the minds of millions across the continent. And though the bullets had stopped, the revolution had only just begun.